The morning in Metroville was quiet until the air in the park fractured. A shimmering tear in reality widened, and a massive green force tumbled through, hitting the pavement with a force that rattled nearby windows. Rex pulled his bulk upright, blinking at the unfamiliar sunlight. He stood motionless, his heavy tail swaying to knock over a park bench. Beside his massive foot lay a smartphone, its screen glowing with a bright notification. Rex leaned down, his snout inches from the glass. He tapped the screen with a single, sharp claw. A shrill, electronic ringtone erupted, cutting through the park's silence. Rex shrieked, the sound echoing off the skyscrapers, and scrambled backward. He lost his footing on the slick stone and crashed into the park fountain. Water sprayed in every direction. He heaved himself out of the basin, dripping, just as the street traffic reached a breaking point. Cars swerved, tires screeching against asphalt, and pedestrians abandoned their paths to run. Sirens wailed in the distance. Rex stood in the center of the walkway, looking at his own tail, then at the fleeing crowd, entirely bewildered by the sudden mechanical roar of the city. Rex looked down the street, his nostrils flaring as he sniffed the exhaust fumes. People were still running, but one woman stood her ground. Maya stepped out from her shop, eyes scanning the massive reptile. She did not scream. She did not reach for a phone. Instead, she walked right up to his shins, held up a thick piece of fabric, and gestured for him to lower his head. Rex paused, his tail twitching, and tilted his massive skull downward. She looped the fabric over his shoulders, securing it with a series of quick, practiced knots. Next came the backpack. It was built for a human, but Maya pulled and adjusted the straps until it sat across his broad back. He shifted his weight, testing the balance. The heavy canvas crinkled against his skin. Maya pointed toward the shop door, then held up a single, laminated order slip. Rex blinked, his eyes focusing on the paper. He took a tentative step, then another, feeling the weight of the pack settle between his shoulder blades. The panic in his chest began to ebb, replaced by a strange, new focus. He was no longer a lost creature in a concrete maze. He was a worker with a task. Rex adjusted the straps of his delivery pack, his claws hovering near the thermal-lined flap. He turned the corner, the scent of melted cheese and pepperoni wafting upward to meet him. It was a sharp, salty aroma that made his stomach rumble like distant thunder. He stopped on the sidewalk, his snout twitching. He flipped the latch. The steam hit his face, warm and inviting. Rex reached in, his massive fingers gingerly picking up a slice. He looked left, then right, before taking a single bite. The flavor was overwhelming. In seconds, the slice was gone. He reached for another, then a third, his focus narrowing until the box was half empty. He paused, looking at the ragged edges of the remaining crust. The silence of his own chewing suddenly felt loud. He slammed the lid shut, the plastic latch clicking with finality. His eyes widened as the reality of his snack took hold. He had a delivery to finish, and he was now missing half the cargo. Rex let out a low, panicked chuff, shifted his weight, and bolted down the sidewalk, his heavy footsteps thundering against the pavement as he tried to outrun his own guilt. Rex rounded the intersection, his tail swinging wide and clipping a trash can. He did not slow down until a sharp whistle cut through the air. Officer Max stood in the center of the crosswalk, his hand raised, palm out, signaling a halt. Rex skidded to a stop, his massive claws scraping against the asphalt. Max walked toward him, checking his watch, then pointed at the dinosaur's bare head. The officer tapped his own head, gesturing toward the regulation gear required for city couriers. Rex stared, tilting his head in confusion. He reached into his delivery bag, pulling out a tiny, bright plastic shell meant for a bicycle rider. He tried to balance the toy-sized object between his brow ridges, but it slid off immediately, clattering onto the road. Max sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose before rummaging through his trunk. He retrieved an extra-large construction helmet, its yellow surface marked with thick, reflective tape. He passed it up to the dinosaur. Rex took it with 2 fingers, lowered it onto his head, and pushed down. The strap clicked under his jaw, pulling his scales tight. He looked at Max, shifted his weight, and gave a stiff, awkward nod before lumbering forward once more. Rex ducked behind a corrugated metal warehouse, his heavy breathing hitching in his chest. He pressed his back against the wall, trying to shrink his massive frame into the shadows. A soft, scuffling sound made him freeze. A young boy named Leo stepped into view, holding a tablet. Rex towered over him, his claws twitching, but the boy did not retreat. Instead, Leo looked up, pointed at the screen, and tapped the delivery app icon. He gestured for Rex to watch, his fingers dancing across the interface to show the route. Rex leaned in, his snout nearly touching the screen. He reached out with a single thick claw to mimic the motion, but his weight shifted, and he slammed his hand down on the display. A red notification banner flashed instantly. The screen erupted in a flurry of activity as the app registered a bulk order. 50 pizza requests pinged in rapid succession, a relentless chime filling the alleyway. Rex watched the list grow, his eyes widening as the total number of boxes climbed. Leo scrolled through the endless queue, his face pale, while Rex slumped against the wall, the weight of 50 pizzas suddenly looming larger than the city skyline itself. The delivery run turned into a high-speed blur. Rex bounded down the avenue, his backpack swaying with the weight of 50 stacked boxes. He moved with surprising agility, weaving through traffic, until a gray pigeon dove from a rooftop. The bird struck with precision, snatching a pepperoni slice from the top box. Rex let out a startled roar, his focus shattering instantly. He lunged for the bird, his tail swinging in a wide arc that sent a mailbox spinning. He ignored the street signs, leaping over a parked bus to keep the pigeon in his sights. The boxes began to wobble. Rex scrambled to catch the top of the stack, but his foot caught a curb. He stumbled, his momentum turning him into a runaway freight train. He tried to correct, arms windmilling, but he was heading straight for a giant inflatable mascot tethered to a storefront. He collided with the rubber surface at full speed. The balloon groaned, stretched, and then burst with a deafening pop. Rex vanished into a tangle of deflated material and flying pizza boxes, sliding across the sidewalk until he hit the glass storefront with a final, muffled thud. Rex pushed aside the rubber shreds of the ruined balloon and shook his head. He reached for a stray pizza box, but the movement stopped dead. Across the city, every street lamp, neon sign, and skyscraper window blinked once and went completely dark. The sudden silence was absolute. Rex stood up, his claws clicking on the pavement as he peered into the gloom. Above the main square, the giant public display screens flickered to life, glowing with an eerie, sickly violet light. The image of Mr. Viper filled the monitors. He leaned forward, his face distorted by the low-resolution feed, and began to laugh. He held up a pulsing, jagged crystal that hummed with fading energy, the source of the city's power now firmly in his grasp. The villain gestured wildly, his cape catching on the edge of his command chair. He tugged at the fabric, nearly tumbling over in the process, but he caught his balance and smirked at the camera. He declared his victory over the paralyzed city while his flying machine hummed in the background. Rex watched the screen, his tail twitching in the dark. The pizza boxes lay forgotten. The city was dying, and the threat was no longer a misunderstanding, but a cold, calculated theft. Rex looked at the screen, then at the sky where a faint, erratic light pulsed in the distance. He exhaled, a low rumble vibrating in his chest. The pizza was gone, the apron was torn, and the city needed a shield. He surged forward, his massive feet cratering the concrete with every stride. He reached the base of the financial district and didn't slow down. He planted his back legs and launched himself upward, clearing the lower levels in a single gravity-defying bound. He landed on a glass ledge, his claws biting into the steel frame of a skyscraper as he hauled his weight upward. High above, the flying machine banked sharply, its engines spitting blue exhaust. Viper spotted him and pulled a lever. A whistling projectile arched through the air, detonating on impact against Rex's shoulder. A thick, white foam exploded outward, blinding his vision and coating his hide in slippery bubbles. Rex skidded on the narrow ledge, his balance faltering, But he didn't fall. He shook his head violently, sending droplets of foam spraying into the night air. He roared, a sound that drowned out the hum of the city, and leapt again, soaring between the towers to catch the villain in his sights. Rex closed the gap in 3 desperate bounds, his fingers brushing the cold metal of the flying machine. He lunged, his massive hand locking onto the main strut of the craft. Viper shrieked, pulling the controls hard to the left, but the weight of the reptile dragged the machine into a downward spiral. As they tumbled through the air, Rex felt a tickle deep in his nostrils. He inhaled sharply, catching a cloud of construction dust from a nearby rooftop. His chest expanded, his face contorted, and he let out a thunderous sneeze. The force of the gust hit the machine like a gale, blowing Viper clear out of his seat. The villain somersaulted through the air, landing with a muffled thud into a stack of patio cushions on a penthouse terrace. Rex grabbed the falling crystal from the cockpit, its surface cold and jagged against his palm. He slammed the crystal back into the primary power conduit atop the central tower. A pulse of energy surged outward, and the city lights roared back to life in a blinding wave. Below, the streets erupted. The sound of cheering rose like a tide, echoing between the buildings as the darkness vanished, leaving the skyline glowing in vibrant electric gold. Back at the shop, the silence was heavy, broken only by the rhythmic rumble of Rex's stomach. Maya set a final box on the counter. Rex took it, his claws trembling as he fought the urge to tear the lid off. He navigated the streets with measured, careful steps, reaching the customer's door without a single dent in the cardboard. He handed over the order with a polite nod and turned back toward the shop. The customer paused, looked at the hungry reptile, and held out a steaming, fresh pepperoni pizza. Rex accepted it, his eyes fixed on the reward. He took a bite, the heat and spice grounding him in the moment. The city felt different now. The noise of the traffic no longer startled him, and the lights of the buildings seemed to welcome his presence. He walked to the back alley, climbed onto his oversized custom scooter, and kicked off. The engine hummed to life, a steady, rhythmic beat against the pavement. He accelerated, turning toward the edge of town as the sun dipped low, painting the Metroville horizon in shades of orange and violet. Rex leaned into the turn, his tail swaying in rhythm with the ride, heading into the evening as the city's undisputed delivery hero.